Hi again, it's Rue and welcome back to Sketchbook Biology. This week we pack our bags and set off to the treetops of Southeast Asia, where we'll run into an adorable nocturnal tree-hugging gremlin with a built-in hammock. This episode is all about Galeopteris variegatus and Cynocephalus volans, the Sunda and Philippine flying lemur. But these tree-dwelling herbivores, commonly called colugos or cobagos, are not lemurs at all. But together, they are the only two living species of the family Cynocephalidae of the order Dermoptera. The native range of the Sunda colugo extends from the Malay Peninsula to the Indonesian islands, and the Philippine colugo is endemic to the southern Philippines. You might spot one clinging to forest trees, or less frequently on the trees of rubber or coconut plantations. A colugo is about the size of a house cat and looks like a squirrel, a bat, and a lemur put together. But that being said, they're not related to any of those animals, and their closest relatives are primates. Its head is small and rounded, with a short snout and a flat face. The fur itself is dense, soft, and plush, providing insulation in the cooler forest canopy. For a Sunda flying lemur, fur coloration ranges from reddish-brown to gray, often mottled with whitish spots or streaks. In the Philippine flying lemur, males tend to have brown fur and the females tend to have gray fur. Their mottling is less dramatic than the Sunda lemurs. But in both species, these colors and patterns help them blend in against the tree bark and dappled light of the forest. Colugo ears are small, rounded, and furred, sitting low on the sides of its head, often barely visible in its thick fur. It has large, forward-facing eyes with a glossy reddish-brown sheen, and these eyes are definitely the most prominent features of its face. They're pretty big, and maybe just a smidge too far apart, giving the lemurs a constantly alert look. I suppose it's warranted, because unlike us, colugos cannot move their eyes independently. So they have to deal with a narrower field of vision, and they have to turn their whole head to get a good look at whatever they want to look at. But their eyes are still very sharp and provide excellent night vision, thanks to several key adaptations. Their large eyes allow more light to enter, and their retinas have a relatively high rod-to-cone cell ratio, and these rod cells are highly sensitive to low light conditions. Surprisingly though, colugo eyes lack a tapetum lucidum. This is a reflective tissue layer situated behind the retina in the eyes of many other nocturnal vertebrates. It functions kind of like a natural mirror, bouncing the light back through the retina to improve vision in dim lighting. You've definitely seen this. This layer is why your dog or cat's eyes glow a yellowish-green color when they catch light at night. Colugos take the tree-living part of their life very seriously. They're perfectly adapted to arboreal life. Their limbs are long and slender, ending in 5 webbed fingers and toes with curved claws that help them cling onto surfaces. Also, their feet can flex into a suction cup-like shape, helping them stick securely onto the bark. This is pretty important because they have 0 opposable digits. All this means that colugos are much better at hanging onto trees than they are at climbing. They're even worse at moving around on the ground. Ever seen a dog trying to walk in snow boots for the first time? Yeah, same energy. But they're doing their best. To get around from tree to tree though, they glide ever so gracefully. They are currently the world's most accomplished mammalian gliders, equipped with a top-of-the-line patagium. A patagium is a broad, elastic membrane of skin that stretches from the sides of the neck down the length of the forelimbs and fingers, along the sides of the body, to the hind limbs, and all the way to the tail tip. Now this patagium is far more extensive than what you'll find on more familiar animals like the flying squirrels or sugar gliders. This allows Colugos to glide a lot longer with a lot more control. Colugos kick off their glides at pretty high speeds, around 10 meters per second, launching with a short leap of about 5 meters and then gliding some seriously long distances, up to about 145 meters. This helps them get around way faster than if they were climbing or crawling to find food. To pull off these glides, especially through dense forests, Colugos fine-tune their body posture mid-air to control the forces acting on them before they land. And that's not the end of it. The impact that they experience when landing is actually a lot stronger than the force they generate to take off. Because of that, they often go for longer glides to reduce the risk of hard landings. They may even splay themselves out just before landing, spreading the impact across all 4 limbs to soften the blow. Sometimes they'll even aim for the ground on purpose, then quickly hop back up the nearest tree trunk. When they're not gliding, this membrane folds in as the Colugo flattens itself against the substrate, making it look almost like a cute patch of moss or lichen-covered bark. Colugos are nocturnal, but show a bit of crepuscular behavior. They spend their day sleeping in tree holes, on branches, or trunks closer to the canopy, camouflaged against the foliage. By about 6 p.m. in the evening, the flying lemurs start to wake up, and often the first order of business is a bit of business. Colugos assume a vertical position, forelimbs retracted, clinging closely to a tree trunk. Next, they scoot their hind limbs upwards, flipping their tail up, partially inverting their patagium, exposing all that needs exposing. And in one smooth swoop, the Colugo extends their forelimbs, pushing their body down into the fully inverted patagium, and successfully pays the sewer tax. And once they're done with their trip to the loo, it's time to glide off and forage. Colugos like to forage quietly, slowly, moving cautiously among the branches. They often hang upside down or cling vertically to trunks while reaching for vegetation. Colugos are not just herbivores, they're folivores, specializing in eating leaves. They're not super picky either, but they do like the tender young leaves. Outside of that, their diets can include less digestible mature leaves. They may even eat flower buds, blossoms, or shoots. Occasionally, they'll eat fruits, slurp up some sap or nectar. But most times, you'll find them munching on the leaves and flowers of the Buchanania arborescens tree, commonly known as the sparrow's mango. Also, they like to lick bark and leaves. They do this to obtain water, nutrients, salts, and minerals, especially if a slab of bark has some lichen on it. Oh, and one more thing. Some biologists have observed Sunda colugos double dipping and licking up ants of the Paratrachina longicornis variety. This is super rare and interesting because it means that we're still learning more about their dietary preferences and if flying lemurs are even strictly herbivores. Regardless, their fiber-heavy diets mean that they need a few gastrointestinal adaptations, the first of which is their teeth. Colugos have one of the most unusual dental arrangements in the mammal world. Colugos have what's called a tooth comb. This feature is also seen in some primates like lemurs, but as we've seen before, Colugos take it a step further. Their lower incisors are comb-like, with up to 20 fine comb-like tines or grooves on each tooth. Their teeth are relatively small and closely packed, and these teeth serve 2 purposes. 1. They're well suited for processing soft vegetation rather than chewing tough fibrous material. Second, Colugos use their teeth combs to, well, comb and groom their dense fur. Colugo stomachs are also built to handle big loads of leafy greens. Its intestines are very convoluted, stretching up to about 4 meters, and the cecum and the colon are enlarged and divided into compartments. And these chambers house microorganisms that help break down the plant cellulose through fermentation, much like a cow. And also like a cow, they have to spend the majority of their waking hours foraging and gliding between tree to tree because their diets are relatively poor in energy density. They forage for short periods of time in many bouts, approximately 29 10-minute foraging sessions starting just after sunset, right up until just before sunrise. And they like to keep their foraging to larger trees and towards the edges of the trees' crowns. Not only because this is where the youngest leaves are found, but all the way up in the canopy, they're less likely to be seen by most predators. And their predators are a scary bunch and can include pythons, the Philippine eagle, which almost exclusively feeds on these little guys. Other predators include mammals like the yellow-throated marten, long-tailed macaques, leopards, and the scariest of them all, people who hunt them for food and their skin. Colugos don't have much in the way of defenses except remaining perfectly still to blend in with their surroundings, or of course gliding away to a nearby tree. Unfortunately, the biggest threat to them right now is the rapid deforestation of Southeast Asian rainforests. Even removing one tree makes it more difficult for a colugo to glide in between and glide for long periods of time. Colugos are also not the most social creatures and sometimes described as semi-social. Colugos tend to live in loose social groups typically made up of one male and around 3 females. It's just that when they're spotted, they're usually alone, and social interaction with other flying lemurs can be rare. However, a more common sight is that of a female colugo foraging or resting on a tree trunk with her infant peeking out from behind her patagium. And colugos make very good moms, and despite being placentals, they raise their babies a little like marsupials. Colugos engage in year-round breeding, and gestation lasts about 105 days, typically resulting in just one baby. But on rare occasions, twins are born. Colugo infants are born extremely underdeveloped. They're tiny and helpless and completely dependent on their mom. The mother uses her patagium kind of like a natural baby sling. She wraps it around the infant, creating a warm and secure little space. Nursing is frequent and the infant clings tightly to the mother's belly fur, rarely separating from her. Even when gliding, the baby holds on to its mom's midsection. As the baby matures, it begins to venture out slightly away from mom but still remains nearby. At about 6 months, the younglings are completely weaned, but even then the young colugos often remain in the same territory as mom. In about 2 to 3 years, the younglings will reach sexual maturity and gain independence, and off they go on their tree gliding adventures. Soon, the night will end, and it'll be time for the colugos to find a nice tree to settle in for the day. And that's where we'll leave these tree-hopping babies. Long live the colugo. A special thank you to all the scientists, grad students, and undergrads that got soaked in tropical thunderstorms and put long hours in the lab to produce and share their colugo research. And as always, thank you for being here and listening. If today is your birthday, happy birthday to you! And if you're in a slump right now, I hope things start looking up for you very soon. But if you're just enjoying a nice cup of tea, coffee, or venti iced chai latte with 3 extra pumps of chai, oat milk, and vanilla cold foam, please leave a like and subscribe. I'll see you soon. Peace.